Hi, this is our SAT vocabulary list number 12. Please make sure you write down the words, the part of speech, and the definitions. And in the margins of your Cornell notes, write down any examples, any root words, anything I say that might help you remember these words, or any connections you can make between these words and your own life experiences, which will hopefully help you to remember them. The very first word is abstinence, and abstinence is a noun. We actually had the verb form of this word, to abstain, and abstinence is self-denial, which means you're not allowing yourself to do something. You're really holding yourself back from enjoying something or participating in something. So abstinence is that self-denial. And a lot of times when you hear the word abstinence, you might think of a group of people who choose not to do something, to enjoy something for a particular reason. I chose nuns because they live a life in which they abstain from getting married, they don't have relationship with men, they don't indulge in things like drinking, and so they practice abstinence in lots of different areas of their lives. The second word is aghast, and aghast is to be, it just describes someone who is struck with terror, like overwhelming amazement or shock at a situation. A lot of times this is associated with being filled with fright or horror. So someone who is aghast is not only struck with terror and amazement, but they're frightened as well. They're seeing something that is maybe horrific and they're having this really extreme reaction to it. So an example might be, if you're driving on the freeway and there's a huge car crash and there's clearly people have been injured, you might just look aghast at the sight of this horrendous car crash. The third word is collaborate, and this is a word we should be really familiar with as we do this all the time in the classroom. It's a verb, and it means to labor or work with, to cooperate with your peers, with other people, in order to get something done. In this SAT definition, it says especially in literary or scientific pursuits, but the reality is that collaboration, the noun form of the word, is a skill that is becoming more and more important as students leave school and enter jobs, enter college, because you really have to be able to effectively work with other people, a diverse group of other people, to create something, to achieve some kind of outcome. So you're laboring or cooperating with others to get something done. So I have a picture here of two people who are clearly kind of working something out. They're putting their ideas on sticky notes. They're having a conversation. They're collaborating together. 4 is divergent, and it describes something that, or things that tend in different directions. To diverge is the verb form, and something that diverges moves away. They move away from each other. It means to deviate. And so even thinking of divergent, the D in divergent, different directions, things moving in different directions might help you remember. And so I have two roads that are clearly diverging. They're going different directions, leading probably to two very different places. Number 5 is forebode, and I underlined the F-O-R-E in forebode because that is a prefix that means before. And you might remember a literary term we've talked about, foreshadow, which also has this prefix in it meaning before. So usually when something is foreshadowed, it is a hint or a clue that comes before an actual event. To forebode is when you have an omen or a sign, usually that something bad is going to happen before the actual event takes place. So to forebode is to be an omen or a warning sign of something, usually something that's evil or bad or not good. So if you had plans to go out on a big picnic with all of your friends or go on an outing or, go to SeaWorld or wherever you're going to go that would need like good weather to really enjoy it, a dark sky with lots of gray clouds does not, wouldn't bode well for your group. It would probably forebode really bad weather and be kind of a sign of bad things to come. And bode, the second part of this word, really means to be an omen. So fore and bode, when combined, means to be an omen that comes before something, just to break down the word a little bit for you. 6 is inept, and someone who is inept is just not, they're not fit for a particular job. They don't have the skill set to get something done. They're not really suitable for a particular position. And usually it's because they don't really have skills in that area, or they don't have like an aptitude or natural ability for that particular task. So some people can be super really talented in some areas, but just really inept in other areas. So for some people, technology, it's really overwhelming and they feel inept. They feel like they just don't really know what to do with all of these tools and these devices and these wires. It's just not an area where they feel like they're going to be successful. 7th word is lackadaisical, and lackadaisical is like a quintessential SAT word, and it describes someone or something that's without vigor or life or spirit, someone who kind of lacks determination, they're unmotivated. A lot of times this word is used to be synonymous to the word lazy, although it doesn't necessarily have to have that negative of a connotation, but just someone who doesn't have a lot of energy that tends to be described as lackadaisical. So when you think about the animal world, cats are definitely considered kind of lackadaisical. They're pretty lazy, they sleep, they kind of just do what they want when they want. Might be one way to think about it. But you could also have a student who's lackadaisical, just not very motivated when it comes to school or prioritizing homework or whatever the task may be that they're supposed to be on top of as a student. Number 8 is negate. And to negate is to deny the existence of evidence or the truth of something. So to deny or to say that you don't believe in it, that is to negate. And so if you, for example, when we work here in school on projects, sometimes the progress of a project that we're working on as a class can be negated by our lack of access to technology on this campus. So that lack of access can negate or make it hard to get something done. So that's one way to think about it. There's also lots of people, you hear the conversations about global warming, and there's a lot of people that deny the existence of the truth of global warming. They don't believe that, our activity as human beings are actually causing this phenomenon called global warming. That is another example of a topic that, or evidence that people negate. They don't believe in it. 9 is potent, and something that is potent is very strong. It's very physically powerful, and this word can be used in lots of different ways. So if you're, having a debate with someone, there are arguments that are particularly potent, like they're very strong. They're going to really resonate with people. People are going to say, oh, wow, that's a really great point. There's also medicines and drugs that are really potent and have a very strong effect on your body. And so that's another way to think about this word. And, if you have a really strong, let's say you're cooking and you're using really spicy peppers, that could have a very potent impact on, the taste, the way the food tastes, even on the people who are eating that food. 10 is reliance, and reliance is synonymous or means about the same thing as dependence. So when you rely on something, you depend on that thing, that person, or you can rely on getting a paycheck every week to pay your bills. And if that disappears, well, then you're going to lose that income that you're hoping for, and that could lead to negative things. You can also think of reliance as just depending on someone for support or your basic needs, just like an animal, whether it's a human being or a monkey or whatever. Some baby really is very reliant on their mother for their basic care, for their food, and so to be reliant on someone means you're really dependent on them. 11 is seethe, and this is a verb. And to seethe is to get so violently irritated, agitated, angry. Excited is I wish that word almost wasn't there because excited sounds like a good thing, but to seethe is to be so violently angry that you're almost like boiling over. So it's to like surge and foam with anger, just like you're kind of boiling. And, now that I've had children, I never really understood the phrase spitting mad, like someone's spitting mad. Like, who really spits when they're mad? And now I have a 4-year-old son who, when he gets angry, he literally gets like spitting mad, where he's like literally just spit to like show me how angry he is. Not spit at me, but like on the floor. And it's a really bizarre phenomenon. But he's clearly like in those moments, he's so angry and agitated and seething. I guess spitting makes sense to him or makes him feel like he has some way to get that out. And the archaic use of this word, seethe, was to boil. So it comes from that idea of like just boiling over with anger. 12 is sumptuous, and something that is described as sumptuous is really rich and costly. So the furniture in a person's house who we would describe as affluent, which was a previous SAT word, probably has very sumptuous furniture, very sumptuous, items in their house that were very rich and very costly. So think about that when you're thinking of sumptuous. You might think of William and Kate and what might be around them in their home is probably quite sumptuous. I mean, just look at the carriage that they're in right here, sumptuous. 13 is tremulous, and I think that one way I've always remembered this word is that tremulous reminds me a lot of tremble, and to tremble is to shake, and something that is tremulous is characterized by, quivering or an unsteadiness, and a lot of times if your body is described as being kind of tremulous or you're feeling tremulous, your body's actually trembling, either from nervousness or because you're weak, or maybe you haven't eaten in a long time, or you just are a really demanding workout and you're just feeling a little bit tremulous, right? You're feeling a little bit shaky, a little woozy. Sometimes kids are tremulous because they're very fearful, and so you have like little kids who kind of hide behind their parents because they're nervous of other people that they don't know. 14 is vulnerable, and this describes someone who is capable of receiving injury. So if you're vulnerable, it means you can be hurt. And sometimes people are, physically vulnerable. So if you're a boxer, well, you're going to have your moments where you're vulnerable and you might get hit. Or you could be emotionally vulnerable, where you're just having a really hard day or week or month and you're kind of emotional. And so if someone says something that's a little harsh to you, you might like take that really to heart and really be hurt and injured by it because you're just in that space. So here's a picture of someone who looks like she's kind of at her breaking point. She's feeling vulnerable, and clearly whatever conversation she's having is not improving that situation. So just keep in mind that to be vulnerable can be physical, but it can also be, mental and emotional as well. And the last word is zealot, and this is a person who embraces a cause or pursues something in a fanatical manner. So you think of the word fanatical, and just in our last SAT word, we had the word fanatic, someone who goes like above and beyond in terms of their dedication to a sport or religion. And a zealot is very much the same way. They tend to embrace a cause, a belief, or a pursuit with this fanatical kind of approach where it's all about this thing that they're pursuing or they're embracing, or this idea. And so when you think about zealots, you might think about the first word on our list, which is abstinence, because people who are embracing a cause or pursuing something, they often will abstain or deny themselves things in their pursuit of whatever it is that they're going towards or working towards. And there are people during the Occupy Wall Street, during the financial, kind of crisis, that were out and literally like on the streets day after day, holding their signs, fighting for their cause. So that might be an example that help you remember.